Carolina Hurricanes are back in the final for the first time since 2006, and they're entering the series as favorites against the Vegas Golden Knights. With the biggest storyline, Mitch Marner. After leaving Toronto last offseason, Marner now leads the entire playoffs in scoring and is just 4 wins away from a Stanley Cup. The twist, last year he turned down a trade to Carolina. Now he has to beat the Hurricanes to win hockey's biggest prize. Meanwhile, Carolina coach Brind'Amour is trying to become one of a few people in the NHL history to win a Stanley Cup with the same franchise as both a player and as a coach. And don't forget the goalie battle. Frederik Andersen versus Carter Hart could decide the entire series. Do the Hurricanes complete their 20-year journey back to the top, or do the Golden Knights add another championship to their growing legacy? After months of playoff hockey, we're finally down to 2 teams. Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights will battle for the Stanley Cup, and on paper, this matchup has everything. Carolina is making its first Stanley Cup appearance since winning it all in 2006, while Vegas is looking for its second championship in just 9 seasons of existence. Hurricanes enter the series as betting favorites, but if there's one thing we've learned about the Golden Knights, it's that counting them out is usually a mistake. Let's dive into the biggest storylines heading into the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, right now the first storyline is the Carolina Hurricanes have finally broken through. For years, the Hurricanes have been one of the NHL's most consistent regular season teams. They just could never get over the hump in the playoffs. That has changed this year. After multiple conference final disappointments, Carolina is finally back in the Stanley Cup final for the first time in 20 years. Their combination of elite defense, relentless forechecking, depth scoring, and disciplined play has made them one of the most complete teams in the National Hockey League, and the sports books agree. The Hurricanes opened the series as the favorites to win the Stanley Cup, a reflection of how dominant they have been throughout this postseason. Now, for them, finish the job, yes or no?
Mitch Marner, Hollywood script. If you're looking for the biggest individual storyline in this series, it's Mitch Marner. After spending 9 seasons in Toronto and never advancing past the second round, Marner left the Maple Leafs and joined Vegas last summer. Here's the twist. Last year, Toronto tried to trade Marner to Carolina, but he declined the move using his no-trade clause. Now, 1 year later, leading the playoffs in scoring, and he's going to have to beat the very team he refused to join in order to win the Stanley Cup. You couldn't write a better script. Marner has been sensational throughout the playoffs and is playing some of the best hockey of his career. If Vegas wins his first season away from Toronto, instantly becomes one of the league's biggest success stories. Well, I mean, he's playing in Toronto, and teams from Canada can't win the Stanley Cup, Frank. So it's not that surprising that he automatically gets to the Stanley Cup final.
The biggest surprise to me there is that he'd been in the league for 9 years. It feels like he's been in there for 5 at the most. Going from on the ice to behind the bench now, no individual is more connected to the Carolina Hurricanes franchise than Rod Brind'Amour. He captained Carolina to its only Stanley Cup championship in 2006 and now has a chance to coach them to another. Since becoming the head coach in 2018, Brind'Amour has transformed Carolina into one of the NHL's most respected organizations. The Hurricanes have reached the playoffs every single year under his leadership and are now finally back on the NHL's biggest stage. A championship would cement Brind'Amour as one of the most important figures in franchise history and one of the NHL's elite coaches.
How crazy has this season been? 2 months ago, John Tortorella was working in television.
Yeah.
Now he's coaching the Stanley Cup final. Vegas made a shocking coaching change late in the season, and Tortorella stepped in. Fast forward to today, and he's preparing for his first Stanley Cup appearance since 2004 when he won a championship with Tampa Bay. That's a 22-year gap between final appearances, the longest in NHL coaching history. Love him or hate him, Tortorella's return to the spotlight has become one of the most fascinating stories of this postseason. I mean, every way you look at this, Frank, all these storylines, absolute fascinating Stanley Cup final.
Again, it's been absolutely incredible. And going back onto the ice with Jordan Staal, he spent more than a decade serving as the heartbeat of the Hurricanes organization. Now he's one series away from making NHL history. He won the Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh back in 2009. If Carolina wins this year, the 17-year gap between championships would be the longest gap for championships for a player's career in NHL history. It's a fitting opportunity for a player who has been one of the league's most respected leaders potentially to go out on top and make some NHL history at that.
Let's talk about the goaltending battle. Championships are often won in net, and this year's final is no exception. Frederik Andersen has been outstanding for Carolina. His save percentage sits above 930, and he's been nearly unbeatable throughout the playoffs. On the other side, Carter Hart, who has quietly delivered elite performances for Vegas throughout the postseason. Neither goalie was the biggest headline entering the playoffs, but both have emerged as major reasons their teams are still playing. This matchup could very well determine who lifts the Stanley Cup. Should be a fun one in goal, but you also got experience versus hunger in this one.
Yep, absolutely. Vegas brings championship experience. Carolina brings unfinished business. The Golden Knights still have several members of the original Golden Misfits team that stunned the hockey world during the franchise's inaugural season. Players like William Karlsson, Riley Smith, Braden McNabb, Shea Theodore know exactly what it takes to navigate the pressure of the Stanley Cup Finals. Carolina, meanwhile, is fueled by years of playoff frustration and a belief that this is finally their moment to shine. Sometimes experience wins, sometimes hunger wins. And right now, as we mentioned before, betting odds say hunger has the better shot.
Player to watch, Taylor Hall, former first overall pick, is finally making his Stanley Cup final debut after more than 1,000 NHL games. Hall has been outstanding throughout the playoffs and currently leads Carolina in postseason scoring. This could be the defining moment of his NHL career. And what to watch for this week? Well, game one is on Tuesday. Three key areas to watch in Tuesday's game before we talk about later in the week. Can Carolina's forecheck wear down Vegas? Which goalie steals the game first? Can Mitch Marner continue his playoff dominance on the biggest stage? Those questions may ultimately decide who wins the Stanley Cup. But the final thoughts, series feels like a true heavyweight fight, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Hurricanes may be the favorites, but Vegas has championship DNA and proven playoff experience. Personally, Carolina looks like a more complete team entering this series. They've been dominant defensively. Their depth has shown up consistently, and Frederik Andersen is playing the best hockey of his career. That being said, though, if Mitch Marner stays hot, Vegas gets elite goaltending, this series could easily go the distance. Either way, this is going to be one hell of a Stanley Cup final, no matter who wins.